Guys, I'm back with yet another model kit. So we're a couple days removed from Halloween. Decided to work on a Halloween-inspired model kit. So the one I'm going to be working on is the Vampirella 1/6 scale figure. So this was manufactured by KitKong's Model Mansion. I'm thinking it was made back in the 1990s, late 1990s or early 2000s. It's a simple model kit. There's only 4 parts involved. It's made out of like a polystone resin. And, you know, when I started taking a look at this box art, I started to see a discrepancy that kind of cracked me up. And I think if I had bought this back in the day when it was first available, and I got this in the mail, I probably would have been a little disappointed with the manufacturer. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So you can see that the hand is not resting on the headstone. It's supposed to be there. It's off by about 1/4 of an inch. That was the first thing that kind of threw me off. The second thing that kind of threw me off is right up here. They're using tape to tape the arm onto the figure's body. So not only is the hand off the headstone, but it's not even really put together very well. Let's see. You can see in the back here, you got the tape. It looks like from this angle, it looks like the hand is on the headstone. But then you can see in this angle, the hand is not on the headstone. So, yeah, well, this is a garage kit. That's what you get. Of course, being a garage kit, there's no instructions involved. But with 4 model kit parts, it's easy to figure out where everything goes. There's no color instructions. There doesn't have to be. I mean, there's plenty of images on the internet of the Vampirella figure. I've built a couple of these Vampirella figures in the past, so I already know what the colors are, so that's not a challenge. The challenge is going to be to make sure that the figure is resting its hand on the headstone. And from what I can tell, the hand is supposed to be on the headstone. There's indentations on the top of the headstone for the hand to rest in. So the challenge for here, for this figure, is going to be to make sure everything is angled correctly so that the figure is resting on that headstone. Other than that, there'll be some cleanup involved. The molding itself was, I thought the parts were really well molded, but there's some cleanup involved. I found that there's air pockets in some of the pieces that got to get filled in. Not a big challenge. I'll just put a little bit of resin in there and then, you know, smooth it off. That's to be expected when you have a garage kit anyways. You're always expected to do some sort of cleanup. The figure is going to be about 12 inches tall, I believe, or about, yeah, at least 12, maybe about 11 inches tall. So it's a good size model kit. So in a second, we'll go down the bench and see what all the parts are and what needs to be addressed before I start assembling and painting this model kit. Here's the 4 parts. So start with the main body. It's molded pretty well. I think her face really looks nice and sharp. There's some things in the back here that need to be addressed. You can see there's some holes here that will need to be filled in with a little bit of resin. And down here too. For the most part, the sculpt really is sharp. Here's her hand. As you can see, her fingers are curled underneath her hand, and that plays a role when it's positioned on the headstone. Again, a little bit of cleanup needs to be addressed, as well as the boot. Getting this out of the way, there's the headstone. And the ground area. I'm pretty impressed with how well this was molded. Came out sharp. So, as I mentioned, what has to happen is this hand needs to be positioned on the headstone. So it's going to be positioned about, let me get my hand out of the way, needs to be positioned just like that. So just playing around with it. In order for me to do that, I'm going to have to make sure that when I put her on the base here, that it's leaning far enough back that the hand, the arm is extended down to the headstone and the hand is resting in that spot. So I'll have to play around with that. Now, one thing I do like that they did was they have some indentations in the foot here as well as the base. So that allows me to drill out a little bit more and add a pin into the base and the boot. So once I do that, I can then move the body around until I get the hand positioned right on the headstone. So when we come back, I will show you the progress I made in getting the hand positioned onto the headstone. So this is for an update. So what I've been doing is really doing a lot of filling, sanding, and filing, fixing areas too that were, I wouldn't say damaged, but didn't look really good. When the manufacturer removed the parts out of the mold, there were a lot of deep grooves from a file. Looked like they were doing, like the back of the arm here was filed down, and I tried to make sure that it was fixed there. Where the bracelet is right here, this was almost filed flat on this side. Just didn't make any sense why they filed it down, but it happened. So I ended up having to fix that. I used some UV resin to fix the form. I shaped it, filed it, sanded it, so now it looks pretty decent. I also found on this side that this also needed to be fixed a little too. Once the arm goes into place, what's going to happen is if I hadn't fixed it, the arm would have been flush up against this arm amulet. And so I ended up having to add UV resin just to form it out a little, so that now the arm is not going to be flush. It looks like it was supposed to be, which is some sort of piece of jewelry that's on the arm. I had to do the same thing with the boot. I found that the boot, before I even started working on it, needed to also have it expanded for when it goes into the leg. So now when it goes into the leg, get it in here, and you can see that there's actually, it's a little bit off from the leg. So it looks like it's a boot that's supposed to be on the leg. The other thing I did was I added a brass pin here. The arms and the arm, I should say, and the boot has one ready to go. So then I started playing around with getting the figure onto the base. Now, one thing that I'm noticing as I was working on this is it's a very, very tight fit. So it may be a little hard to see, but the boot's supposed to go into this indentation right here. So when it does, and I'll just put it right in, you'll see that it goes in almost perfect. But that also means that the body has to be slightly turned around. Now this is where the challenge comes in with the hand. These indentations here on the headstone is where the hand rests. So the hand actually goes in like this. Get it right. Okay, just like that. But what's interesting is the hand, even though it goes in like this, when it's attached to the body, the body actually twists around just slightly so that the boot will fit into this groove here. And the hand then fits into the arm. Now, one of the things that I've noticed is the arm had to be adjusted a little. So what I ended up doing was cutting off or just slowly grinding down the front part of the arm. I probably took about a millimeter, maybe possibly 2 millimeters of resin, so that when it goes in here, it'll actually rest um, within the base itself. So I'll show you in a second what it looks like on the base. All right, so I got the hand onto the headstone, and the boot is now into that groove in the base. The figure is moving slightly to the right. The arm is slightly moving to the right as well. Um, so I haven't yet glued the arm into the body. That'll be the next step. But one thing that I'm noticing is that it's a very, very tight fit in order for it to go properly into the groove. Once the arm is into the groove, the figure will stand up upright as it's supposed to. But the challenge is making sure that that hand is in the into the headstone correctly as I'm waiting for the glue to dry. So I'm going to use 6-minute epoxy to put the arm in place. That'll give me plenty of time to move the hand into position and making sure that the arm is in position as well. And then, of course, the boot down below. And I'll just hold it in place for about 6-7 minutes as it sets, and then just let it dry after that. I think the 6-minute epoxy takes about 4 hours to dry. So I'll just leave it in place as it's drying. But this is a very, very tight fit. The other boot will fit on there without any problem. And there's a little bit of space, but it doesn't do anything for anchoring the figure onto the base, unfortunately. So it's just the hand and the boot are the only two contact areas that keep the figure upright. I will say that like I said, it's a very tight fit. I can see why on the photograph that they taped the arm in place, uh, because if you're playing around with this, it's not the easiest thing in the world to get in place. It can be done. Unfortunately, that arm amulet needed to be expanded a little on the bottom for me to have in order to see a difference between the arm and the torso. So once I did that, it actually makes it look like it's supposed to. Again, that's probably more of a sculpting problem when this was originally sculpted. But yeah, that's where we stand right now. So when I come back, I'll have the arm in place and I'll have the other boot in place. And we can see what the figure looks like before I start priming and painting. Hey guys, I'm back. As you can see, everything's painted black, or primed black, I should say. So I was able to get the arm on. And unlike the box art, I was able to get the arm onto the top of the headstone and into the bottom of the figure's arm. To get to this point, there was a lot of work that needed to be done. So once I attached the arm, I then had to fill in a gap between the bottom of the armband and the top of the arm. And I had to do the same thing with the boot. The boot had a little bit of a gap. It was less than a millimeter there. So I filled that in with UV resin and then added perfect plastic putty to smooth it out. Then once I was satisfied that the arm appeared to be good, I then primed it gray. And that's when I started to find other issues. First issue was the top of the arm was not smooth. It was really, I would say it was dimpled. But I also found throughout the figure's body a lot of pock marks. And then interestingly enough, in the front area on the leg here, as well as the front of the boot, there was scraping that went on or file marks that went on. I guess when they removed the figure from the mold, they filed off some of the rough edges, but it was just all these deep file marks. So they had to be addressed too. And I used perfect plastic putty for that, as well as some of the UV resin. Once I was satisfied with that, I then did another gray primer. Found a few more issues that needed to be addressed that I didn't notice the first time around. And then once I was satisfied with that, I then painted it all black. The base didn't need to be addressed at all. The base was in pretty good shape. I had fixed a few things prior to priming it, so I was pretty confident with the base. So now that she's primed black, the next step is to paint a Zenithal highlight onto the figure. And I'll be using this black, or not black, this wood base that I constructed. I got a hole in the middle here, so I'll just put the figure, the pin at the bottom of the figure's boot in here, and that allows me to anchor it in place without getting any paint onto the bases. I'm adding the Zenithal highlight. And then after that, I'll start the painting process, adding skin colors as well as all the other colors onto the figure and then onto the base. So when we come back, I'll go over what progress I've made in terms of painting. So I got the Zenithal highlight onto the figure and the base. Of course, a little bit easier to see it on the base because it's light in the front and dark in the back. So I'm imagining that the sun or moon or whatever that's shining on Vampirella is in the front. So for the white that I used the Vallejo white and just airbrush that on the front. So the next step is to address the figure. I'll get to the base a little bit later. So on the light side of the figure, I'll be using the Vallejo Violet Red. And then any of the dark areas like underneath or the back side, I'm just going to be using transparent red. The idea being that, when we think of our bodies, it's, it's sort of red or reddish bluish. So that'll help me set up the skin tones a little bit later on. So I'm going to do the figure, really just work on the figure at this point. Get all the skin tones in place, and then I'll address the base a little bit later on. Okay, so I'll admit it doesn't look like much, but on the front of the model, I used the violet red, and in the dark areas, I used the transparent red. So the idea is it's going to create a light and dark areas when I start applying the skin tones. So I've let this dry for a little while, and this stage, I'm going to put it back on the base here. The next step is start to apply the skin tones. So I'm going to use the Steinerez. I forgot the color for this. I think it's I think it's just a light skin, or well, there it is on the back, light flesh. So I'm going to water this down quite a bit before I apply it onto the model. The idea is I really want the dark areas to come through the skin color. So that'll help me as I start applying other skin colors on top of what I've already done. So that's going to be the next step. So yeah, like I said, it doesn't really look like much right now. I admit that, but I think it's going to pay off in the end. I've done this on other models too, and I like how it comes out. And I will admit that this is not my idea. There's a lot of other folks on YouTube who are doing the exact same thing, and it's their ideas to do stuff like this. I just use what they offer for advice and go with it. So yeah, when I come back, we'll see how it looks like with the first layer of skin tone. Came back and I got the first pass of the skin tone on her, and as you can see, a little bit of the purple and red is showing through the skin. So it's a little bit darker in the back here, and it's lighter in the front. So the next thing I'm going to do is add highlights to her. Highlight on the face, a little bit on the arm, a little bit on the chest area, a little bit on the hand here, and a little bit on the top of her leg here, because that's going to be in the moonlight or sunlight. So what I'm going to be using is the highlight skin, and start applying that to these various areas. So when I come back, I'll show you what I did with the highlight skin on her. Okay, I got the highlight on. So I had applied it on her face, her arms, the chest area, and the legs here. So I let this dry for a little bit, and the next step is to get some darkened skin on her backside here, arms and legs, and then down below where we're not seeing any light. I'm going to try to get a little bit in here as well as underneath the breast area. So what I'm going to be using for colors is the orcish dermis mixed with the light flesh. So I'm probably going to start off with a 50-50 ratio to see how that looks. I don't want it to be as dark as the orcish dermis is, so I want it to mix in with the skin tones that are currently going on the skin. So when I come back, I'll show you what I did for those darkened areas. Okay, so I'm back. I added the light flesh tone all over the body, and it sort of brought everything back. I like the reddish areas that you see on her body, especially in the back, so it feels a lot more natural. However, I'm still not satisfied with this. It doesn't really feel like it's, I don't know, chiseled enough, especially in her face, in her neck area, certainly with the arms, the hands. So I think what I'm going to do is add a flat coat to this, let that dry, and then I might end up using some pastels, and then try to emphasize some of some of her face, her neck, the areas that I really indicated. But overall, the colors aren't too bad. It really isn't bad at all. But yeah, that's going to be the next step. So I'm going to let her dry for about an hour to an hour and a half, and before I add the flat onto it, because I really want that. I want that paint to be at a position where I'm not going to see any sort of bubbling or anything like that happening when I add the flat coat. So we'll be back in a little bit. I'll show you what I did if I end up doing the pastels. Okay, I'm back, and I got the first pass of the skin tone on her, and as you can see, a little bit of the purple and red is showing through the skin. So it's a little bit darker in the back here, and it's lighter in the front. So the next thing I'm going to do is add highlights to her. Highlight on the face, a little bit on the arm, a little bit on the chest area, a little bit on the hand here, and a little bit on the top of her leg here, because that's going to be in the moonlight or sunlight. So what I'm going to be using is the highlight skin, and start applying that to these various areas. So when I come back, I'll show you what I did with the highlight skin on her. Okay, I got the highlight on. So I had applied it on her face, her arms, the chest area, and the legs here. So I let this dry for a little bit, and the next step is to get some darkened skin on her backside here, arms and legs, and then down below where we're not seeing any light. I'm going to try to get a little bit in here as well as underneath the breast area. So what I'm going to be using for colors is the orcish dermis mixed with the light flesh. So I'm probably going to start off with a 50-50 ratio to see how that looks. I don't want it to be as dark as the orcish dermis is, so I want it to mix in with the skin tones that are currently going on the skin. So when I come back, I'll show you what I did for those darkened areas. Okay guys, so as you can see, I applied the Orchis dermis in the areas that are darkened on the body. So the next thing I'm going to do is just apply the skin tone back onto the figure so that everything is blended together. Okay, so I'm back. I added the light flesh tone all over the body, and it sort of brought everything back. I like the reddish areas that you see on her body, especially in the back, so it feels a lot more natural. However, I'm still not satisfied with this. Um, it doesn't really feel like it's, I don't know, chiseled enough, especially in her face, in her neck area, um, certainly with the arms, the hands. So I think what I'm going to do is add a flat coat to this, let that dry, and then I might end up using some pastels, and then try to emphasize some of the some of her face, her neck, the areas that I really indicated. Uh, but overall, the colors aren't too bad. It really isn't bad at all. But yeah, that's going to be the next step. So I'm going to let her dry for about an hour to an hour and a half, and before I add the flat onto it, because I really want that. I want that paint to be at a position where I'm not going to see any sort of bubbling or anything like that happening when I add the flat coat. So we'll be back in a little bit. I'll show you what I did if I end up doing the pastels. Okay, guys, I'm back with another update. Since my last update, I added the pastels onto her skin. So the process that I use for that is first I'll flat coat the entire figure. That way I lock in the skin tones. I then apply the pastels to wherever there's folds in the skin, like on her arms, her legs, her back area, chest area, underneath the neck. Um, and then once I'm satisfied with the appearance of the pastels, I then flat coat on top of it just to lock that in place. Now, the thing I like about using the pastels is it's easy to remove. So use a Q-tip just to remove the pastels if you think it's just too dark in an area or you want to lighten it up. If you definitely want to remove it and then start all over again, you can wet the Q-tip and then start all over again. That's why it's important to have a flat coat underneath. That way you're not removing the paint. And, you know, that saves you a little bit of time to have to go and repaint everything. Now, the pastels that I used for the figure are these pan pastels. I sort of like using a combination. So I use the burnt sienna in some areas. That sort of gives it a reddish appearance. And then I also use this burnt sienna shade in other areas just to make it a little bit darker. So you can see like the burnt sienna was applied here and a few places down here. And then in the back, it was definitely the burnt sienna shade, really to make it darker. So now that I got this locked into place, the next thing I'm going to be doing is painting the costume. So for the costume, I'm going to start off with the bloody red. So that would be for the costume here as well as in the back. For her lips, I plan on using this devil red. And then I want to give her a gothic appearance. So for her fingernails, I'm going to use this cardinal purple. Now for her collar here, I'm going to be using a off-white for that. I never use white for clothing, mainly because you know, most of our clothes aren't really truly bright white, sort of an off-white color. So that's why I'm going to be going with. It'll look white on the figure, but it's not going to look unnaturally white. Now for her hair, I'm planning on using the NATO black, and then adding highlights using the flat blue. Just dry brush the flat blue onto the top of the hair. And now the reason I'm going with NATO black for her hair is I want her hair to look different from her boots. Her boots I'm going to be painting just a gloss black or a flat black. I haven't decided which one I'm going to go with. If I do the flat black, I'll just add a gloss on top of it. But I want the boots and the hair to look different. I don't want it to be the same color. Now for her jewelry, like this armband and on her wrist here, as well as this little area here, what I plan on using is this liquid gold. I've used this stuff in the past, and it's worked out pretty well, actually. But the key to using the liquid gold is you got to have it first primed with some gloss black. That way, it'll make it look shiny. So I'm still going back and forth on whether I want to use the gold color or the old gold. I kind of like the old gold for this character, so I may end up going with that, but we'll see. I'll let you know with my next update. So at this stage, I am ready to go with the painting process. So when I come back, I'll show you what progress I've made on the figure. And hopefully I've done the figure justice. Okay, so I'm back. I got Vampirella fully painted. So I'll go over the colors that I used in case you have a Vampirella model kit out there that you want to paint. So for her outfit, I started with the bloody red. And once that was fully dried, I then used the Mecha varnish, the gloss varnish. Now, the reason I went with that is I like to have the outfit sort of stand out from her skin tones. The skin is, of course, a flat skin tone, so with having it glossed over, it makes the outfit stand up a little bit more. Now, for her lips, I end up using a devil red color because I wanted that to be slightly different shade from her outfit. Now for her fingernails, I went with the gothic look. So I ended up going with a cardinal purple color. So that was also glossed over with the varnish. And I did it on the front where her hand is resting on her hip, as well as where her hand is going to be resting on the headstone. And there was just 2 places where that had to be addressed. Now her boots are a gloss color. So that was a gloss black, followed by a coat of the the Mecha varnish gloss color. So I wanted that to stand out as well. Now for her hair, I ended up going with the NATO black. I think I mentioned that earlier. And then I just lightly dry brushed some blue on it as well. And I also flat coated that. So I don't know if the blue is really standing up very well here, but it's standing up pretty well for me in terms of this natural light color. Now, with her collar, I end up going with the off-white. I like going with an off-white as opposed to a white color because it looks a little bit more natural when it's a off-white color compared to her skin and her hair color. Now for her jewelry, I first did a gloss black base, and then I end up using the liquid gold. I like how that liquid gold just shines on there. So the gloss black just allows the liquid gold to look like gold on her. So those are the colors that I use for most of the body. Now let's talk about her eyes. Her eyes, I never, ever, ever do a white color. My preferred color is a white gray. I've gone different directions. I've used this white gray in the past. I've also used a combination of a little bit of a lighter, like a sky gray, and mixed in with a little bit of white. And then I don't know how easy it is to see here, but I also did a little bit of old rose. And I did a little old rose on the bottom part of the eye. Um, so I never ever have had success painting um, the irises in on a figure. So I end up using decals for those eyes as well. Um, One thing that I recommend is never have the eyes look straight forward. It doesn't look natural. I know, in real life, we might look into a mirror with our eyes pointed straight forward. But when it comes to any sort of figure models, I always want to have the eyes looking either to one side or the other. So after putting the figure on the base, it looked like that she's actually looking to her right. So I moved her eyes over just slightly so that it's looking to the right as opposed to straight ahead. I think if you went straight ahead, it just wouldn't feel natural. So the figure is done. The paint is all dry, and we're pretty much ready to go on to the base. So I'll just put her aside. So for right now, I've just been resting her on this metal board. That way, she's just standing, um, without having to be on the base. So the base was painted, was first started off with a base coat of black. And then I applied the white on top of it, again, using Zenithal highlight for that purpose. So, talk about what I'm going to do for the headstone. My plan, at least right now, is to use a dark gray color initially, and then I'll probably use different tones of grays to just bring out some of what's going on here. Certainly, make it have a little bit of chip effect. Now we also have a few things we have to address. We got this green moss on here. It looks like there's some green moss there as well. We have this vine going up on the side here, so I'm envisioning that's going to be a combination of a brownish color and maybe a little bit of green in there. And then then where she's standing, it looks like this might be dirt here. So I'm going to go with a couple of different combinations of brown there. I also have to address the roots that are here. And then it looks like there's some grass going on here, and maybe even grass going everywhere. So I might do a couple of different shades of green there as well. And then finally, you have the Vampirella lettering here. I'm leaning right now in the direction of using the bloody red color. That way I just match up her outfit. So that's where we stand right now. So when I come back, I'll go over what my progress on the base. So I've weathered the headstone. So the base color I ended up using was this basalt gray color. And then I dry brushed the Stonewall gray on top of it. So now it looks like it's a weathered headstone. So the next thing I need to address is going to be the vines that are growing on the headstone, the grass, and this moss. I believe it's moss that's growing on here as well. So for a little bit of inspiration, I'm turning to nature for the vines. So I clipped this off my backyard just for an idea of what the colors are involved for a growing vine. So this was a vine that was growing on the ground. And as you can see, it's just mostly browns. Not a surprise there. So after taking a look at what I had going on for brown colors, I'm going to start off with a base coat of beige brown. That seems to be pretty close to this bark color. And then I'm also thinking of using the burnt umber in different areas within the headstone. Like I might end up using like a wash of the burnt umber over the vine itself. And then down here where it looks like it's growing in the ground, we're going to use probably the burnt umber there too. In some spots, I might end up using the saddle brown. This saddle brown is pretty close to the leaves that are growing out of this branch. So that may come into play in some of these areas too. So once I get the vines addressed, I'll need to address also this ground area here. It looks like it's just dirt under here. So I'm thinking of using this brown splash mud and apply that onto the base down here. Now above ground, it's going to be grass. So this definitely looks like some type of grass is growing. And then we have the moss up here. So these are going to be green colors. So I'm thinking for the grass, I'm going to start off with a deep green color and apply that first to the grass, and then maybe use the light green as a as a dry brush color on top of the grass. That looks like it matches the grasses outside right now. Now for the moss, I'm thinking I'm going to start off with some green and then add a little bit of deep green as maybe sort of as a wash within it. There's not a lot of moss going on, but I think this is moss. Of course, looking at the box art that comes with the box is all black and white, so it's hard to tell what colors were intended for these areas. So that's what I'm going with for right now. So when I come back, I'll show you the progress that I made. And for the most part, I went with the colors I described earlier. And I'll just show you what it looks like on the side here with the vine and the back. And this side here. And the front again. So for the coloring I did for the moss, I ended up going with the deep green, and then I dry brushed the light green on top of it. So now it looks like somewhat like moss in different areas. So I just dry brushed the top areas of the moss. Now for the grass, it was deep green everywhere. And then I dry brushed a couple of different colors on there. So I did the green brown in some areas, and then other areas I went with the brown violet. And my intention was to make the grass, instead of looking uniform, sort of look like that it's maybe dying or drying out in a couple of different areas. So I just wanted to make it look less uniform than just having green on there. Now for the vine itself, I pretty much went with the colors I described earlier. I started with the beige brown, and then I added saddle brown on top of it. So I made saddle brown into a wash and just washed it onto the vine just to make it, especially these low areas, to stand out. Now for the brown area under here where there's roots and dirt, I guess that's what's going on. So I started off with the burnt umber, and then on top of that, I then added the beige brown onto the roots. So I wanted the roots to be, standing out from the dirt, so to speak. Now I didn't really like the fact that it was as light brown as it was with just the beige brown on there. So I ended up washing a couple of different colors. I went with chocolate brown. So I did a wash and just added chocolate brown, and then also some burnt umber. Interestingly enough, this burnt umber color is different in color than this burnt umber. This burnt umber seems to be, so this is the Model Air, seems to be a little bit darker brown than this burnt umber. I'm not too sure why. I would have expected it to be the same color, but it wasn't. Which sort of helped out a little because that made it interesting in some areas here where I added that lighter burnt umber, like in the back here. So pretty much the base is done. The only thing I got to do with the base is add some flat coat on here. So I'm just going to let this paint dry probably another half hour or so. And I forgot to mention the lettering. I ended up going with the bloody red. And I think I had mentioned that earlier. I just wanted that lettering to stand out and to match Vampirella's costume color. So, like I said, I'm going to let this dry for another half hour or so, then do a flat coat. And then when we come back, I'll do some beauty shots of the model completed. Okay, guys, that's a wrap on the Vampirella model kit. And as you can see, I got the hand on the headstone, unlike the artwork, where it is missing on the headstone. And I didn't need to use any tape to tape the arm onto the figure's body. When it comes to garage kits, the challenge is always trying to get the parts to fit. And especially the older garage kits, that's always been a challenge. With this particular model, the challenge that I encountered was having to fill in some of the areas where they used a rough file to remove some of the excess resin from the body. So I had to fill that in, and I used a couple of different methods of doing that. I used UV resin was my main tool in this case, and then I followed it up after doing a really light sanding on the figure with some perfect plastic putty. And I think I got all the areas pretty well. I will say that in terms of getting the body onto the headstone or the hand onto the headstone, that was not very difficult. They had already pre-drilled holes into the boot and the base. So it's just a matter of finding the right size drill bit to open up the hole and putting and inserting a brass rod into the boot so that would fit into the base. Once I did that, I then saw that, in fact, the figure could reach down onto the headstone because it was angled correctly. The challenge became there was a gap between the top of the arm and the bottom of this arm bracelet. I had to build out that arm bracelet because if I had inserted it, the arm into the arm bracelet originally, there would have been no way of distinguishing the arm bracelet from the upper part of the arm. Also, it was a little bit flat, as I recall, in the top part of the arm. So once I played around with that and filled it in with some UV resin, I really think I was able to fill in that gap, and now it looks like the arm is where it's supposed to be, and there's no gap in between. This figure can be picked up and removed, so it can be packaged separately, which is a good thing. Because if I transport this down the road, I want to be able to, wrap it up and transport it separately from the base. Painting wasn't too much of a challenge either. It's just a matter of using some flesh tones. And in my case, I also used pastels to sort of highlight the muscles, the breast area, and the back. And I think it came out pretty good there. I used a little bit of pastels also on her costume in different areas just to darken it up a little. And painting the base wasn't too big of a challenge either. It's a small base, and there really isn't much going on in terms of painting it. Just a handful of colors really. So overall, this model came out pretty good. I'm very satisfied with how she looks. So until next time, you be safe and keep on modeling.
It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.